Good morning. Today we'll be doing November 2023, paper 1. The code of this O-level chemistry paper is 5070. Now, in question number 1, they've asked us that in this graph, which of the letters correctly represents the option in which there are the states of matter exist in both the solid as and the liquid. Now, you need to know that whenever a change of state is occurring, the temperature remains in a flat line. Now, why does the temperature remains constant? It remains constant because a lot of energy required to break the bonds, and whenever energy is intaken by the compound or by the chemical to break the bonds, the net temperature of the substance does not increase. Now, on question number 2, they've asked us about diffusion. The only true correct thing about diffusion in all of these options is that in diffusion, the particles or ions in this case move completely random in a haphazard pattern, and they remain doing so until and unless they evenly spread out through the container. I've repeatedly given the example of how a perfume is whenever we do a spray of perfume in a closed room, initially it is concentrated on one corner of the room. However, after a period of 30 minutes to 1 hour, it gets evenly spread throughout the room. Now, in question number 3, they've told us about three things: X, Y, and Z. So Z is an alloy, brass, it is a mixture of two substances. Y is an element, iodine, it's in group 7, and X is air. However, we know that air consists of many gases, noble gases, oxygen, nitrogen, helium. So basically, X is a mixture. So the correct option out of all of these will be that Y is iodine. So we can narrow down our options to C and D. And subsequently, the correct option will be, yeah, because mixture is X only. So the correct option will be C. Now in question number 4, I told you the definition of isotopes, that isotopes are substances of the same element which have the same proton number but different neutron number. Now, there are two types of bromine for the syllabus, bromine 79 and bromine. So now in question number 5, I told you about question number 4. That in question number 4, bromine atoms have the same number of protons but different number of protons, and the chemical properties are similar in elements which have the same number of protons. However, the number of electrons can differ. Now, on question number 5, a lattice is a predominant structure of an ionic compound, and in the case of sodium chloride, we see that each sodium ion is surrounded by six ions of chloride, and this is a characteristic pattern. Now, you all know that what are the chemical properties of sodium chloride, that it helps to conduct electricity because of whenever it's present in the molten or aqueous state. Now, on question number 36, they've basically written a precipitation reaction, and you need to know that whenever the characteristic ionic equation for precipitation reaction is that there are always two aqueous reactants in the chemicals or in the reactant side, and there is one solid product in the product side. So, and our reactants are only always shown in the ionic form, so we can simply rule out A, P, and D, because over here you can see that HCl has been written jointly without writing each of the ions. So the correct option is C. Now in question number 7, we just have to calculate the MR of each of the following compounds, and they say that CO2, so CO2 will be 30 16 times to 44. So why the MR, when you calculate this entire number, it should be about 88, because they say that which of the following options has an MR of Y which is twice that of X. Now in question number 8, they say that a reactant X2 combines with hydrogen to form HX. So since they've already said there is one volume of X2, so we need to balance the chemical equation and there should be an equal volume of reactants and products. So the correct option should be HX. Now in question number 9, the greatest volume of carbon dioxide is produced whenever during the thermal decomposition of calcium carbonate. How we can find out this? By calculating the moles. We will divide mass 10 grams divided by its mr, which I think will be 100, and so 10 divided by 100 will give me 0.1. Now what will I do? What I will do is that we know that in will they have the same mole to mole ratio, so we'll just put in 0.1 equals to volume over 24, and I'll multiply 24 with 0.1. They've also, by the way, written over here that the calcium carbonate's mr is 100. So the greatest volume of carbon dioxide will be produced in option number B. Now in question number 10, to calculate the mass of chromium, we know calculate the total mr of the following compound, and in the periodic table there is the chromium is mr is also written separately, so we'll calculate chromium as mr divided by the whole denominator and multiply it toward 100 because they've asked us the percentage. Now in question number 11, what is percentage yield? Percentage yield is the amount of product which you get actually, because always the chemical equation, the product which has been written over here, it represents the product which should be basically yielded ideally in an ideal situation, not accounting for any losses due to heat or energy. So now what we'll do is we'll be calculating the mole to mole ratio. So ideally, they say that 80 tons of iron oxide produces 50 tons of iron. So the ratio is 80 ratio 50. We'll just narrow it down. We'll do 80 divided by 50. It comes down to 8 divided by 5, which I think is about 1.3. So they say that 1 mole of basically that 1.3 moles of iron oxide should produce 1 moles of iron. So what is the percentage yield? We'll simply by this formula, we'll just calculate the mass over 1.3 divided by equals to mass over mr, which is about 56 for iron. So we'll multiply it with it, and whatever tons or whatever answer we get, we divide it with 50, and the correct answer will be 89%. Now in question number 12, you need to recognize that aqueous copper 2 sulfate contains both hydrogen and hydroxyl ions. What will happen is that the color of the electrolyte will remain blue because the copper ion will be discharged and it will remain in the electrolyte, and copper has a naturally blue color, so the color of electrolyte will remain blue. Now the mass of the cathode will increase, whereas the mass of the anode will decrease. Why? Because instead of sulfate ions, hydroxyl OH minus ions will be discharged at the anode, emitting oxygen gas. And however, in the case of cathode, its mass will increase because copper sulfate, basically copper ion, will be deposited over there. Now, in question number 13, the value of delta H, you obviously need to know that this is a reaction involving bond formation, and bond formation reactions are always exothermic, meaning they have a negative delta H. So the correct option will be either A or B. Now, what is and how do we calculate enthalpy change? We basically take the sum of the bond energy required for bond breaking and this energy required for bond forming and subtract the two. So HCl is the sum, and its answer is 431. So we subtract it with the addition or the sum of 436 plus 242, and the correct option will be B. Now on question number 14, this is an endothermic reaction. We know just by looking at the positive value of enthalpy. Now they say that you can see that over here 1 mole of nitrogen is combined with 2 moles of oxygen. However, they say if we were to combine 2 moles of nitrogen with 2 moles of oxygen, what were to happen? Now the correct option would be C, that the enthalpy change would not increase or decrease because the amount of product which is being formed, it solely relies on the amount of oxygen, and you can see that the volume of oxygen or the moles of oxygen remain same in both cases. Now, A chemical change is primarily whenever bond breaking or bond formation occurs. So the correct option will be simply A. Now on question number 16, yeah, so the correct option will be B. Why? Because there's always a loss of mass whenever carbon dioxide is emitted. Carbon dioxide is emitted when we combine calcium carbonate with HCl, and in reaction 1 there will be a disappearing cross because the mixture will become cloudy when we add silver nitrate to chlorobutane. Now in question number 17, we just have to know the catalysts which are being used in each of the following processes. In Haber process, which is used in the manufacture of ammonia, iron is the catalyst, whereas the product of a derivation of hydrogen to an alkene is that the hydrogens are added across the double bond, so they convert an alkene to an alkane. Now you need to know that in question number 18, if D is the correct answer. Why? Because you can see that first of all you need to know that both oxidation and reaction occurs to the reactant side. Now you can see that the oxidation state over here is +2 and it has been changed to +3. Or moreover, there is the loss of electron as well. So there has been gain in oxidation state or a loss of electron, both of which are conditions which favor oxidation. Now in question 19, whenever we add a base, the correct option will be B. Why? Because we know that acids have a pH less than 7, whereas bases have a pH greater than 7. So obviously adding a base for example, ammonium compound or ammonia will increase the pH of the acidic substance. Now on question number 20, first you need to know what each of these compounds are. Amphoteric is a substance which reacts with both acids and bases, and the basic substance always reacts with an acidic substance and the vice versa in the case of acids. So R firstly, R is an amphoteric thing because it reacts with both acids and bases. And once you've established its R, you can know it. The answer is either A or D. Now Q reacts with acid, so it must be a base. So the answer is D. Now a hydrated substance is one which is in chemically combined with water. A hydrated comes from the word hydration. Now in question number 22, you need to know the solubility rules. You just have to basically name the chemical compounds and then count how many of them are formed. For example, copper to copper, when copper is combined, copper carbonate is combined with HCl, it forms copper chloride, it's soluble. Similar is the case with copper sulfate or copper nitrate, these all are soluble. So you up till now you got three salts. Now whenever you combine calcium with calcium sulfate, it is a insoluble salt. This is the only exception. You got to learn that all sulfates are soluble except for lead, barium, and calcium. However, calcium forms a soluble salt with calcium chloride and calcium nitrate. So the correct option will be 5. C. Now on question number 23. The correct option will be A. Why? Because you can see that W and Z are in the same group because they've got the same number of valence or outer electrons. In the case of W, it has got 7 outer electrons because we know that the first shell holds only 2 and the second holds 8 and the third also holds 8. So 9 minus 2 is 7. So W has 7 outer electrons, and in the case of Z also has 7 outer electrons. Now on question number 24. What is the correct option? All of them is yeah, we all know that group 7 molecules are known as diatomic molecules. For example, they all are written with the subscript of 2 and below them. For example, iodine is written as I2 or fluorine is written as F2, and they all are involved in the process of covalent bonding because they share electrons and they are non-metal atoms. The final question for today is about aluminum. You know that aluminum is made for aircrafts, and why is it suitable or a priority? Because firstly, aluminum is a very low density, which enables aircrafts to easily fly, and secondly, it is resistant to the effects of corrosion. Thank you. I hope you liked the video. I'm sorry for the interruptions, which were, if any.